Animal world. There are million types of animals that exist in nature. In order to understand how all living organisms are related, they are arranged into different groups. These groups, in case of animals, are known as phyla. Each phylum contains organisms that have things in common. The common features of all these animals which fall in one phylum form the basis for the classification of these animals. Let us discuss each phylum one by one. Phylum Porifera. Animals under this phylum are commonly known as sponges. These are the simplest multicellular organisms. Their cells are loosely held together and they do not form tissues. These distinctive cells, choanocytes, line the interior body walls of sponges. These cells have a central flagellum that is surrounded by a collar of microvilli. Their flagella beat to create the active pumping of water through the sponge. Water enters its cavity, spongiocele, through numerous openings called ostia and escapes out through the larger openings known as osculum. They grow attached to a solid support and do not have any muscle cells, so their movement is rather limited. Examples of poriferans are Leucosolenia, Cycon, Hyalonema, and Euspongia. Phylum Coelenterata, Cnidaria. These are aquatic animals having radially symmetrical body. Cnidarians have a diploblastic body and have a central gastrovascular cavity called cylindron. Nematocyst. It is a specialized cell present in the tentacles containing a venomous, coiled barb which is used in self-defense or to capture prey. Cnidarians' bodies take one of the two forms, the polyp or the medusa. While the polyp form is adapted for a sedentary or sessile lifestyle, the medusa form is adapted for floating or free swimming. The skeleton of these animals is made of calcium carbonate and produces corals. Some examples of cnidarians are Hydra, Obelia, Physalia, Aurelia, and sea anemone. Phylum Platyhelminthes. The platyhelminthes include free-living flatworms like the planarians and the parasitic tapeworms and flukes. The term flatworm refers to the fact that the body is dorso-ventrally flattened. Flatworms are the first organisms to have tissues organized into organs and the first to demonstrate bilateral symmetry. Examples: Dugetia, that is planaria; Fasciola hepatica, that is sheep liver fluke; schistosoma, that is blood fluke. Taenia solium, that is poke tapeworm. Phylum nematoda. Escalmenthes, roundworms. The body size of nematodes varies from microscopic to quite large forms that are elongated and cylindrical. The body cavity is a pseudocoelom. They are triploblastic and bilaterally symmetrical like platyhelminthes. Body is covered with an elastic cuticle. They are mostly parasitic. For example, Wucheria causes the disease elephantiasis in man. Here you see some other nematodes. Ascaris, that is roundworm. Enterobius, that is pinworm. And Ancylostoma, that is hookworm. Phylum Annelida, segmented worms. They are triploblastic and bilaterally symmetrical. The body cavity is a true coelom and is segmented. In some of these organisms, appendages like setae and parapodia are present for movement. They are found in fresh water, moist soil and marine water. Example, Nereis, that is sandworm. Aphrodite, that is sea mouse. Phyretima, that is earthworm. And Hirudinaria, that is cattle leech. Phylum Arthropoda. Animals with jointed feet. This phylum has the maximum number of organisms including spiders, insects, butterflies, centipedes, prawns, etc. Organisms under this phylum are eucoelomate, triploblastic and bilaterally symmetrical. The body is divided into two regions, cephalothorax, having head, and thorax and abdomen. The epidermis is covered by a strong glycoprotein called chitin. Paired and jointed appendages are present and may bear claws. See some animals falling in this phylum. Pelemon, that is prawn. Periplaneta, cockroach. Scolopendra, centipede. Musca, housefly. Anopheles, mosquito. Apis, honeybee. Palamnius, scorpion. And arena, that is spider. Phylum Mollusca. These animals are characterized as having soft body and usually have limy shells. The organisms in the phylum Mollusca are characterized by having three main body divisions: a head, foot in the form of visceral mass, and a mantle which secretes a shell. Some examples of molluscans are chitin, phyla, that is apple snail, unio, freshwater mussel, pinctada, pearl oyster, octopus, devilfish, and dentalum, that is elephant tusk shell. Phylum Echinodermata, having spiny-skinned animals. All echinoderms are marine organisms. In the larval stage, most echinoderms are bilaterally symmetrical. Most adults are radially symmetrical and they have a ventral mouth. Echinoderms have a water vascular system consisting of a network of radial canals which extend through each of the extensions of the animal. Examples of echinoderms are asterias, starfish, ophiothrix, brittle star, holothuria, that is sea cucumber, echinus, that is sea urchin, and antedon, sea lily. Phylum Hemichordata. The hemichordates are soft-bodied, worm-like marine organisms which are often found in U-shaped burrows on sandy or muddy sea bottoms. They probably represent an evolutionary link between the chordata and the echinoderms. Hemichordates are distinguished by a tripartite, means a threefold division of the body. At the forward end of the body is a preoral lobe, behind this is a collar, and the last comes a trunk. Some examples are Balanoglossus, that is a cornworm or tongueworm, and Cephalodiscus. Phylum Chordata. Chordates are defined as organisms that possess a structure called a notochord, at least during some part of their development. Chordates have bilateral symmetry in some stage of the life cycle. There are 3 subphyla in the phylum Chordata: subphylum Urochordata, subphylum Cephalochordata, subphylum Vertebrata. Out of these, Vertebrata is the largest and consists of 7 classes. Subphylum Urochordata. The urochordates, commonly called tunicates, are marine creatures which are mostly sessile as adults, although some are free-living. The name tunicate is suggested by the usually tough, non-living tunic or test that surrounds the animal and contains cellulose. Some examples are Hermania, Salpa, Doliolum, Pyrosoma, and Oikopleura. Subphylum Cephalochordata. The last group are the cephalochordates, which are usually represented by one organism: Branchiostoma, commonly called Amphiosax. Subphylum Vertebrata. Vertebrates, which include fishes, reptiles, amphibians, birds and mammals, share a common feature of vertebral column. A chain of bony elements, that is vertebrae, runs along the dorsal surface from head to tail and forms the main skeletal axis of the body. There are 7 vertebrae classes: Agnatha, Chondrichthyes, Osteichthyes, Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves, Mammalia. 4 are aquatic and 3 are terrestrial or semi-terrestrial and may be grouped as the superclass Tetrapoda or 4-footed animals. The 7 classes of subphylum Vertebrata are like this. Out of 7 classes of vertebrates, 3 classes are of fishes. The most primitive of these is Ignatha. It consists of jawless fish that do not have scales. These are vertebrates that possess a circular mouth which is of sucking type. They have cylindrical eel-like body. They feed on the blood of other fish, which is usually a shark. Hence, they are ectoparasites. Examples: Petromyzon, lamprey, and mycene, that is hagfish. Chondrichthyes. These are sharks and rays. The skeleton is completely cartilaginous. Body is streamlined and tail helps in propulsion. Examples: Scoliodon, that is Indian shark, Pristis, sawfish, trigon, stingray. Class Osteichthyes comprises of bony fishes. Some examples are labio, that is carp, mystis, catfish, anabus, climbing perch, exocetus, flying fish, hippocampus, seahorse, and protopris, that is lungfish. Naming method: binomial system. It is in your nature to organize, to classify, and to name anything, whatever you come across. We want to know how living things are related to each other and to the things that once lived but are now extinct. Many efforts were made to devise methods of classification. Finally, in 1758, Carolus Linnaeus introduced two-kingdom classification system, according to which all living forms were classified into 2 kingdoms. All animals in one kingdom, called Kingdom Animalia, all plants in another, Kingdom Plantae. He also gave hierarchy of classification that spreads from the broadest to most specific. It starts with kingdom, goes to phylum, class, order, family, genus, and ends with species. Species are the smallest groups. A species consists of organisms of the same type who are able to breed and produce young ones. Kingdoms are huge groups consisting of millions of organisms of somewhat similar kinds. In 1735, Linnaeus also published an influential book entitled Systema Naturae, in which he outlined his scheme for classifying all known and yet to be discovered organisms according to the extent of their similarities. During his lifetime, he completed several editions of the Systema Nature, 6 editions of another book, the Genera Plantarum. Carolus Linnaeus is also known as the father of taxonomy. Taxonomy is the branch of science that deals with classification of living organisms. Later on, the 5-kingdom system of classification was given by R.H. Whittaker, according to which all living organisms are subdivided into 5 major kingdoms, including the Monera, the Protista, the Fungi, the Plantae, and the Animalia. The current system of naming was also given by Carolus Linnaeus. This lenient system of classification has been widely accepted by all, and till date it provides the basic framework for all activities related to taxonomy. Such a 2-words naming system is referred to as binomial nomenclature. This lenient system of classification is a method of naming living organisms using 2-word system, so it is known as binomial system of classification. 2 categories, genus and species, out of hierarchy of classification, are used while naming an organism. A genus is a higher level category that includes 1 or more species under it. For example, Linnaeus described name of modern humans as Homo sapiens. Homo is our genus and sapiens is our species. In scientific name of maize, that is, Zea mays, Zea is genus, whereas maize is species. In scientific name of rice, that is Oryza sativa, Oryza is genus, whereas sativa is species. In binomial nomenclature, you learned that the first name is the genus of the organism, the second is its species. As one genus usually have more than one species in it, so while naming different organisms of the same genus, species changes but the genus remains same. Understand with the help of examples. The scientific name of the white oak is Quercus alba, while red oak is Quercus rubra. The word in the names is taken from its genus and it applies to all species of oaks. Names of all type of oak starts with genus Quercus. Alba and rubra are 2 different species of oak. Alba is for white oak, rubra is for red oak. Another example you see, the name for the domestic cat is Felis catus. Felis denotes the genus, whereas catus denotes the unique species which is used for domestic cat. Other feline species, such as the jungle cat, is named as Felis cors. Wild cat as Felis sylvestris, and sand cat as Felis margarita. All these four cats belong to genus Felis, but each represents different species: Catus, Cos, Sylvestris, and Margarita. Binomial nomenclature is a formal system used in biology to name organisms. The system ensures that every known kind of organism can be distinguished from another organism. There are certain rules to write these names. First word of a scientific name. The genus name is written first. The first letter of the genus name is always capitalized. The name is always underlined or italicized. Second word of a scientific name. The species is written second. The species is always underlined or italicized. The first letter of the species name is never capitalized. The name should be in italics when printed. The name should be underlined separately while writing. So we can say that scientific or Latin names for living organisms are conventionally typed in italics, and if they are written, they have to be underlined. Many people wonder why scientists use complicated, hard-to-pronounce names when speaking about familiar animals and plants. Common names such as white oak, wildcat and dolphin are accepted when used in casual communication and serve the purpose in a particular community which already recognizes that animal with the name in its local language. But it becomes difficult as soon as that name crosses the boundary of that community. In India, you call a cat as cat. But if you are in Japan and call it cat, nobody would understand. However, if you were to tell a Japanese scientist Felis catus, he would understand what organism you are talking about. The advantages of scientific over common names are that they are accepted by speakers of all languages. The language used in the names under binomial nomenclature is largely from Latin and Greek. The advantage of using this language is that the Latin words are more widely accepted to all scientists all over the world. This is why we say it is a universal system of naming living organisms. By using the same binomial name in Latin, we can ensure that all scientists, no matter where they come from, will be talking about the same organism. According to binomial nomenclature, each name applies only to one species, and that each species has only one name. Panthera tigris, the name is given to tiger only. No other animal in any part of the world has been given this name. There are 3 international organizations for governing the application of rules of nomenclature of scientific names. One for zoology, one for botany, and the third one for bacteria. These are International Code of Zoological Nomenclature, International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, and International Code of Nomenclature for Bacteria. Here are examples of scientific names of some common fauna and flora. Ragi, Eleusine coracana. Wheat, Triticum aestivum. Lychee, Lychee chinensis. Guava, Psedium guajava. Sapota, Manilkara zapota. Strawberry, Fragaria ananasa. Honeybee, Apis mellifera. Lizard, Hemidactylus frenitus. Peacock, Pavo cristatus. Rabbit, Lepus carpeums. Kangaroo, Macropus rufus.